problems are getting worse. My mouse wheel problems have improved slightly, and my mic problems wax. Now, since the last video, it has seemed the gradients were working, and then it seemed they weren't. It did seem like I had a couple more leaks in my code, in my clipping code. I didn't make a very significant change. I made two small changes that I will just quickly speak about. One was somehow owing to what I can only assume is some kind of floating point inaccuracy, or maybe something slightly different. Somehow a line was able to intersect with three sides. Now, I'm just not sure how I was able to do that, but okay. I took this step to solve it, which is basically just checking again at the last side check to see. I mean, I checked once before checking the top and bottom. This is effectively like saying, if the line intersected with both sides, I don't need to check the top and bottom, which is true. But I didn't bother checking in between these, because I just figured it couldn't collide with a side and a top and bottom anyway. That's one thing. The other thing is, it was still getting array index out of ranges, and the way I solved it was by increasing the size of the buffer, which I spoke about before, to be just shy of a pixel all the time, or shy of a final output unit. Now, these leaks made themselves apparent after hundreds of renders. So I'm putting it down to floating point inaccuracy when that buffer is too small. Floating point inaccuracy does get on my nerves. I understand it's a necessity. I mean, it's crazy to say it's not. I understand the computer has, a limit on what it can do. And I kind of understand the way a floating point is represented. What I find difficult to predict are all the sort of ramifications in a specific situation like this, where I'm stepping gradually, as I advance down a Brezhnev line, I'm stepping gradually along one of the axes. If the gradient, if that step size that I figure out gets rounded to be something that will push it just beyond the actual end of the line, as it determined to be just inside the edge of the screen, then I will end up. And also it has to happen in very specific situations, like the bottom left corner or the lowest line of the screen. I guess if it's running horizontally or more horizontally. Anyway, for the time being, I've now done another long render. It's worked. I am running without the debugger on now, and I want to do some more tests, and I want to think about my next move. This is a really strange situation where I wonder. I'm going to say new project. I'm going to start again here. I'm going to switch the grid on. Let's see. Yellows, oranges and blues are great. I want something different though. I think a salmon kind of colour. Maybe, yeah. This, I've noticed, does generate slightly wrong colours, and I'm not that surprised by that because of the shape that these splines will take on. I don't think it's so wrong that I'm fussed about it, but it's just something I'm going to have to remember. And go for a really, really light. And I will just take a copy of that. I'll add another in here and make it just a little bit darker. And I'll apply that, because that's the kind of gradient I want to use. And for what it's worth, I'll go to Addition. Right, well, let me look at what my gradient is. Starting at black, that's not right. I'll start with the dark brown. What I'm doing just now is I'm going to go to Addition, and I'm going to set up the paper and ink of the addition to be like the top and bottom of my gradient, and the only reason to do that is that the addition is the closest approximation in real time of the gradient if the top of the addition's like this and the bottom of the addition's like this. It's not really the way to work, because this will not be the top. This addition will tend towards white and will become saturated anyway. It's as close as I can get to getting an idea of what the colours of the final output will be like. And I do need some preview recursions. And I do want to think about what the next things I have to do are. Actually, I forget that, of course, because it's addition, I need to scale this all the way back. I could probably just use another colour. Anyway, think about my next moves. I want to get this set up so that I am getting reasonably fast but okay looking renders. Because as I play with this and test it and see if it's going to crash again, as it may, switching all my floats to doubles might be a thing that I have to do. But what am I trying to say? As I play with it and it doesn't crash, I do have to think about what my priority next is. I'm trying to get this thing back on the edge of the screen. There we go. Let's see what happens if I just render this. How is everything? Why do I feel like I'm missing something here? Well, I'm not expecting to see much, for one thing. Yes, I do want to overwrite that, because I am using these tiny little high spots. When I first coded and was imagining how the gradient would work, I was imagining it being like this, with the high threshold being automatically selected by the highest point in the render. And that's a thing that I can do, and setting it to -1 does that. But what I hadn't anticipated is just how high the high points are and how sharp the peaks are. This readout's telling me the highest pixels 1333, and you can see in the render that's these tiny little spots somewhere. Most of the, I should also display the average pixel, that'd be good. It would also be nice to see just a render, a height escape type render. I could probably really easily make it do that. I don't want to get too distracted making that. But anyway, so with that at 1300 or so, I have to decide what the saturation point is. Is the way I've started to think about it. But try at 800 and say static image 4, And also it's pretty quick, just over half a second, so I could get away with some more recursions. I should make it automatically display the image. Okay, wow, still high peaks. So this kind of suggests, you know, it was 1300's the highest. I've limited this now to 800. That's 500 chopped off the top. You know, if that was 1300, it's down here now, and it's still these tiny little peaks. Let's see. 400. Well, let's actually, out of curiosity, go for 255. Just because this is where it would top out. Still. Okay, well, one thing now, because I don't want to take it very low, I'm going to boost up the recursions by 2, so it's going to take a lot longer. Hang on. That wasn't it. It was it. And there's still not much, and actually I shouldn't be surprised. That is the kind of layout here. But that was that okay. I have another recursion. That's more like it. Wow, I forget just how many recursions I can do. Well, I've got really used to doing a small number of recursions. Anyway, these are not very good tests because actually I'm just playing with the speed of it. Yeah, that's more difficult for it. And of course, yeah, 11 seconds still not really that bad. Right. Well. One moment. Well, it's not the most exciting arrangement, but I'm enjoying the way this is working. And I'm going to boost this up. And just go for the exact, oops. Same again, 12 recursions. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 to the power of 12. 16 million. 11 seconds. And these are very short lines it's drawing. I have realized that the number of points and recursions, something's slowing this down. The number of points and recursions is in some ways not as significant as the length of the lines. Just going through all the points, I'm going to not give it another recursion, I'm going to change it. Go for it. Another 11 seconds. So, I actually don't much like this color scheme, now that I see it. Although, what does the color scheme need? I feel like the background needs more blue. For one thing. I'm not getting an impression of it here. That is a faff. I'm going to have to do something about these colors, at least in gradient rendering, so that they automatically take on the bottom and top of the gradient. Or something like that. Let me see now. The salmon is not really nice. I don't think that's nice either, really. And I think that what I want to do here is remove and add, just to try and get something more in between. Go for it again. Somehow I've managed to program my double click at a speed that just is totally inappropriate for my internal rhythm, whatever that might be. And I've tweaked it a couple of times and not got it right. Okay, still hideous, I think, but anyway, it's good fun. And it seemed, well, this is all working, okay, let's just give it something more. Like if I go, well, yeah, give it something more difficult. The reason I describe it, I'm always now holding my breath, really, for it just to crash. Like, I believe, somehow, things can sneak through my line clipping. Yeah. This is really just me playing with it now, isn't it? But it's fascinating. This will probably take a lot longer than the last one, because I've just lengthened a load of those lines. The last one took 9 seconds, 9.7 seconds. Yeah, 16. I really, really like the look of these. That's actually changed my opinion of the palette, seeing it like that, seeing it bring out all the detail. And you can see these lines, but you know, these lines are not individual lines. Where I'm seeing these crisscross, that's a texture created kind of by the overall pattern. Right, what I want to do is inside the recursor, boost this by 1. I'm not getting a too terrible impression here, just of what my actual final outcome is. I should take off the 6 limit on the preview recursions, which brings me to other things like what I should okay, go for it. I can't resist just firing out, and please do not crash. Like I say, every render now, and I have done hundreds and hundreds of animations, I'm just thinking something's going to sneak through. But among the many things that I need to improve now, that I need to get a grip of, is whether or not I want to do a low resolution preview render using the gradient code when it's just displaying. That was 27 seconds for that. Same number of recursions, same number of spots, and totally bleached out. I'm going to do it again because I want to catch some more, and the highest pixel there, only 1300, but obviously, oops, I think I'll just make it no, I won't. I'll make it 1000. 27 seconds is quite a long time to wait. Put it in the exact same place. The only thing I've done there is change the highest pixel. Should have no real effect on the speed, so I guess any change I see will be about what else the processor is doing. And actually I think that the recursor itself takes a lot less power when it's minimized. Anyway. So yeah, a preview gradient render possibly, 27 seconds, almost exactly the same amount of time. Well, interesting. It's still good. I would like to see more of that detail. Exactly the same height, which is good. I'm doing exactly the same render. And here I'm kind of seeing 1300. Let's go for it. Let's see. Getting very close to what it would be if I just set the upper threshold to -1 to let it select it automatically. And what I'm getting at when I say that is that it's unpredictable what the sort of topography is going to be like. If it's going to have really, well, it seems to be unpredictable, if it's going to have very, very sharp peaks. I suppose maybe I should be able to predict based on this distribution, again, almost exactly the same length of time. Yeah. Very flocculent. This brings me to another kind of problem. Don't know if I'd call it a problem exactly, but now I'm just going to say make it -1 and see how different. And this time I'll save it to recursor image 3 so that I can flick between the two, because that was 1300 and this is going to be 1392. Well, because I've set the high threshold to -1, it'll automatically set it to be the highest pixel. Rendering the low-res preview in gradient mode, improving the look of these guides, all of them. They're quite ugly. So that was the old one. That is oops, that's the new one. I'm going to do something about the way that's looking, because these recursor images are little experiments I did. That's just a nice, kind of nice lilac. I'm going to put it in video for no good reason, and that. And this, yeah, it's just another gradient render. That is not what it is. This has got some kind of cache which is ruining my fun. It really has, and that's, well, it's made very little difference. Now, I suppose I could cut off the top of the gradient by setting it higher. What would I get? Say 2000. Nothing must be this color, is what I'm saying to it. And this time I'll call it 2000. I'm just toying with it while I ponder. Yeah, so the guides, the preview, this, what is happening now, the fact that the program has just come to a halt without giving you any information is no use. Which brings me to two other things, one of which is sorting that problem. Let me just have a quick look at this. Yeah, I really wish I could flick backwards and forwards here, you know that? Mista. That's not what this is. And you don't even know I've got another one. Do I have options here? Not really very well. I'm going to have to get myself a better image viewer, because I really want to be able to flick between these two things. It does bring me to another thing, yeah, that the thresholds, I think technically should also be things that can have a set of values throughout the animation. That, you know, I could lock it could be totally independent of the number of gradients that there are throughout the animation, but being able to change the value of the threshold at different times. It's going to be very difficult to make good practical use of that. But at different stage of the animation, different values of threshold will bring out different details. I like the way this looks a lot now, the cloudiness of it, the graininess of it. Graininess of it, it's a way of describing it. And I want to do an animation of it. So I think I will set one up. But it brings, it's... This is one, like, I need to clean up the guy. Just to get to the end of that, making the program respond well to entering a rendering state, which needs to happen. I don't know, I'm thinking about it and I think it's related to reorganizing the code, which is a thing I was going to do next and probably still am. Because the code at least needs to look a lot cleaner, and actually part of what would be nice would be to shave off the rendering code into a separate program and start it as a process and just have it run separately. And I could probably, I think, figure out how to use stdout to update a little animation on the static or animation bars, which shows how far through the process it is. That's associated with FFmpeg, which I launch as a process from my monkey code. I'll just render this for fun. I launch it as a process from my monkey code, but I'm having difficulty figuring out what FFmpeg is doing moment to moment. FFmpeg uses stderr as its communication, which, annoyingly, is an unconnected thing in the monkey process class. Monkey process class will read stdout, which I would love to use, but FFmpeg differs. So I can direct the output from FFmpeg to a text file, which I think I would be able to read with monkey. But that's the thing I'll have to do, basically, in order to, like, I can make the rendering processes into a into a separate process, and update a progress bar here and warn you if you're going to quit the program that that'll end that other process and that sort of thing, and allow you to keep working while this process is running. And I guess tell you, please wait till this process is finished before you start rendering something else, or something. Or maybe not, maybe I could just launch as many processes as you want. What's the end of that thought? The end of that thought is that I can do that for my own process if I can figure out how to write stdouts, which I can. I think it's just a print. I'll find out. But for FFmpeg, I need to do this text file thing. All of that is to do with making the program behave nicely when you're doing a render, and it is related to the reorganization. So while what I was thinking was I would do the reorganization just making everything neat, but still similar to the current structure, which is to say things remain these major parts, like I lose track. Like the rendering aspects, the work zone, and the gradient set editor all remain part of the recursor. And while I will do that in some cases, and I'll group all of the GUI gadgets together under GUI, in a single class inside recursor, which is its GUI. In the case of the rendering parts, I'll remove them at least to a separate class just now, but with a view to making it into a completely separate program. So that's the info on the info, sorry, I'm getting distracted, on sort of my next plan, like why when I start to do the reorganization I have to be thinking about making the program behave well, because these two things are related. The way the code's organized, as I reorganize it, I may as well make it as easy as possible to make the rendering into a separate process. Is the sentence that describes all of the rubbish I've been saying. This I think I'm going to render, but I'll have a look at this. Because I see that as, well, no. Look at all those lines crossing the axis. But I don't think these are the ones that are a problem. I think these ones down here are the ones that are a problem. I have to remember as well, these are like 25-second renders. I'm thinking of setting up like a 500 frame render. Oops, don't do that just yet. Okay, well, I still like the look of that. I like the look of that frame. If I'm thinking of setting up a 500 frame render, how long is this going to take? And what about this one? And can I bear the tension of waiting to see if it's going to crash halfway through the render? And knowing that it's because I'm janky at trig, if it does. Okay, I'm going to go for this. I like the way some of these frames look. And this is just doing that. It's really making a lot of lines overlap with that lower left hand corner, which is good because I want to force it. All of these things are fine, but I want 5 video loops and I want 500 frames, which means probably 250 seconds, which is, no, 500 frames does not mean 250 seconds. It means 250 minutes. It means a render of 4 hours. Could I do 250 frames? Oh man, a render of 4 hours. I mean, this is going to be stressful for it. Stressful for it? It's going to be stressful for me to have my computer do this for 4 hours, but that's what I'm going to do. Just for sensibleness, I'll go to temp and I'll ditch all this. This was my lovely previous animations, but I think I have what I want out of it. Oh, I loathe to do this, but what can I say? They're 10 a penny, really. I know that didn't work. Bye-bye. Okay, 500 frames, 5 loops, 12 recursions. Let me have a quick run through and see if there was a major sort of setup I missed. No, let's just go for it. Animation. And what will I call it? I'll call it a rose loop. And this goes into stasis, as should not be the case, but, well, I mean, I did code it to be the case. Let's not be wrong. I'll watch it do the first, or maybe first couple. Oh, this is gonna be. So it's going to take about 4 hours to, there it is, rose loop 00000. it, it's going to take about maybe 4 hours. Suppose a bit less, I overestimated. To render the frames, then FFmpeg will kick in, and it's more efficient at using up more of my processor. That's the other thing, is if I make this into separate processes, could I actually launch like 2 simultaneous processes? Can I start one from halfway through and combine? No, I don't think I can. Anyway, well, I don't think I can. So then FFmpeg kicks in, and that will be another amount of time. I find that hard to predict. For smaller renders I've done, FFmpeg has taken about the same length of time as the render, so half an hour to render, half an hour for MPEG. FFmpeg to render, do its bit of the render. In this case, it's not like actually FFmpeg has a harder job, I don't think, because I think even that like half-hour render might have been 500 frames. It was just that they were much simpler frames than this. I am running with the debugger off, haven't I? I really don't want to click that button, that would interrupt it. I am release mode. So I'm not expecting FFmpeg to take that long, but this will be ready like 1 in the afternoon. Tisk tisk. And I just have to leave these things running. I'll have a quick look at my task manager. Oh. Well, I'll have an easier time of it maybe when I close FFmpeg just now, because FFmpeg, as we speak, is collecting up my desktop. And I'm hoping that closing FFmpeg is not going to worry it, because that is what I'm going to do. Now taking 25, 26 seconds. Okay, I'll leave this to render and I will upload the video in a while, assuming it works. But also, I have my teeth gritted and I'm prepared, as I was before, for it to run for many, many renders and suddenly crash. So if it happens, I'll just have to go back in and have another look. Till next time.